Okay, so why did gold and silver just take a shit? Well, as always, it's a combination of a few different reasons and, of course, market manipulation. And that just means that the big guys, the big investors, the big corporations, the big countries and stuff that invest in our stock market, they know something that we don't. And they're making a move in foresight of something that hasn't happened yet. And that's really like the simplest explanation possible when any major dump off happens or takes place in a short span of time, like it did with gold and silver just a couple of days ago, dropping more than 30% in a single day. Usually you only see that level of volatility with something like Bitcoin or crypto, but especially not gold. Maybe the stock market or maybe an individual stock, for example, you might see be quite volatile like that. And volatile just means it fluctuates really drastically, really dramatically high and low. It's not super steady. And gold in particular, okay, was really never viewed as any kind of volatile asset, although the past like 5 years, it's been very volatile in the upward direction, in the positive direction. And now we've just seen the most volatile one-day drop that gold and silver have ever experienced. And of course, like any other major sell-off or dump-off on any kind of asset, crypto, stocks, anything, when you have big players and corporations that make a move like this, and they dump the chart and the chart has a big red line, well, whether it's part of their intentions to do so or not, they cause a bunch of fear and uproar and panic in the general community, the general population of smaller investors that then go ahead and mimic their moves and sell at a low. And this is how you get caught in an emotional cycle of buying high, selling low. And this is why people tell you control your emotions if you're going to get involved in any kind of investing or trading or anything like that. So that's kind of like the vague answer and kind of synopsis of what's happening. But what in particular happened that caused this? So the primary driving force for the reason that, people, especially China in particular, China and big corporations are kind of putting a pause on gold and kind of selling off some of their gold is because number one, okay, over the course of the last 5-6 years, they've been accumulating a lot of it, a lot more than usual. And this is for a few different reasons. You see, the reason that anybody buys gold is to protect yourself against inflation, protect yourself against a weakening US dollar. And as we know, the dollar has been getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And Trump over the last 6 months or so has kind of been going on this little podium tour. Every time he takes the mic, he's telling us that he wants to make the dollar even weaker. And that's why, things about the US dollar have been so uncertain recently in recent years that other countries and big players in the global economy are moving away from it. And even though it's the reserve currency, which means that it's the global standard currency that really kind of helps bridge transactions and trade between all of the nations around the world, right? A lot of these countries and corporations that are doing global deals and making foreign deals and trade and things like that, they're moving away from the dollar. They're trying to settle these transactions without having to use the dollar. And we've also got the BRICS countries, China, Russia, Brazil, all these different superpowers and real big forces that are kind of banding together to go ahead and back the Chinese yuan rather than the US dollar. So never in our lifetime have we had so much uncertainty about the future security of the US dollar. So that's the reason why all these big players have accumulated so much gold. And that's why gold has been all of a sudden become this crazy volatile growth asset over the last couple of years. But that may have just come to an end. And that's what we're seeing now. And so maybe it's possible that the fear is wearing off a little bit because as you can see on the one-day chart for gold, we're actually starting to recover a little bit, but that's just a small time scale of one day. So who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? When we zoom out, we look at the 5-year chart, you see exactly what I've just been explaining. All these countries soaking up all this gold because, as of 2023, 24, things have just been so uncertain ever since the Biden presidency about the security of the US dollar. And that's why people are buying gold to protect themselves against inflation, protect themselves against a weakening dollar. And then that big kind of spike downwards right there, that's the drop, that's the dump off that we've seen this week over the last couple of days. And so what I'm saying is I think that this dump off that just happened kind of marks the end of what you see here, this sort of exponential growth of the value of gold. I think that's over with. And I think instead we're going to see this kind of a chart we're going to see with the tech sector, the AI sector, and the energy sector of the stock market. I think it's going to be their turns to go ahead and have this kind of a run. But of course, that's just me speculating. That's my opinion. That's, based on the research and all the things that I know about what's currently taking place. I think that's what's going to happen. But don't take financial advice from anybody on the internet. I more so just want to keep you educated, maybe stimulate some questions to pop up in your brain, and you go ahead and do your own research. Now, there's another big factor that we haven't discussed yet as to why exactly that they chose right now to start selling off. So these countries, these big corporations, China, everybody have been accumulating all this gold over the past 5-6 years. And because of the weakening dollar. So what kind of just happened that took that fear of the weakening dollar away, right? Because if they just sold and dumped off all this gold, well, they must feel pretty confident about something else, about the US dollar. So Jerome Powell, okay, you might have heard that name before. He is the current chairman and CEO and leader of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve control the federal banks and they control money printing. Now, the United States president does not have direct authority to go ahead and just fire the sitting CEO of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, which he wants to do. Trump wants him out of there. And that's why you've seen these headlines recently about Jerome Powell getting hit with all these criminal charges and stuff like that, is because Trump just wants him the fuck out of there. Now, the guy that Trump has chosen to replace him in May when his term expires, or if he gets thrown in jail in the next 30 days or something, the guy that's going to replace him is Kevin Warsh, okay? Now, Kevin Warsh has been around the finance sector and been around Wall Street, been around the Federal Reserve for years. And Kevin Warsh is a big proponent of lowering the interest rates, which would in turn strengthen the US dollar. Now, all this is very strange and very confusing because even if you comprehend what I just said about Kevin Warsh, well, a question might pop into your head like, wait a second, Trump has been campaigning for a weaker US dollar. So why would he personally select someone with the opposite philosophy? And this is when politics really starts to turn into a chess game, right? Maybe it's that Trump is trying to ease the concerns of some, loudmouth people that are fearful. Maybe Trump wanted China to sell their gold. Maybe Trump wants something to happen, and he knew that bringing Kevin Warsh in, even though they don't technically spout the same exact things out of their mouth, he knew that Kevin Warsh was a guy that he could bring in and kind of settle everyone's uproar and panic. And so once China and these big corporations saw that Kevin Warsh is going to be coming in, they said to themselves, oh, Kevin Warsh, the guy from 10 years ago who actually goes around tirading for lower interest rates. Oh, Kevin Warsh, yeah, we like that guy. He's level-headed. He's gonna stabilize things. He's gonna stop the money printing. He's gonna chill. He's gonna help things chill out. And so that's how these big players are kind of perceiving this move from Trump. So now that they have a little bit more confidence in the foreseeable future, in the short-term future about the US dollar, they're kind of pumping the brakes and saying to themselves, okay, maybe we got a little ahead of ourselves and bought too much gold. Let's cash out, let's sell out, let's liquidate this and, have some cash on hand, have some dollars, or pump those dollars more into AI, pump those dollars into whatever the fuck you're doing. All right, so that's why this happened. Now, what should you do in response? Well, I kind of hinted at it earlier, but like I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, in my mind, gold is no longer this potential for volatile growth as it was the past 5 years. And to be honest, it really never was supposed to be. It's just because of the impending kind of recession that they keep kicking the can down the curb. They keep kind of pushing it down further and further and further back. We should have been in a depression fucking 3 years ago. Okay, but we're not. And they keep kind of pushing it back with all these moves that they make. And so I think we see an AI bubble that keeps growing, right? I think we see the stock market do really well this year. Like I said, the stock market in general, I think is going to have a good year. I think the energy sector and the AI tech sector are going to have a great year. And I've purchased a little bit of gold and silver because of this drop, and I think it's a good time to do so. Anytime an asset has a big major drop, but you still believe in the long-term value of that asset, you should go ahead and buy it. Now, is the dollar going to get weaker? Is it going to get stronger? I don't exactly know. If it gets weaker, that's better for the stock markets and worse for the working class. If it gets stronger, it's slightly worse for the stock markets, but better for the working class. So it just kind of depends on which side of the spectrum you fall on. Some people find themselves right in the middle of that spectrum, and it's kind of difficult to know how to feel. But hey, I'll let you figure out your own goddamn feelings. I'm just here to kind of be the messenger for you. So this is what happened. That's why it happened, and that's what I'm doing about it.